The crimson battlefield captain Marcus Kane stood among the smoking ruins of what had once been a thriving Zalani research facility. His tactical armor bore scorch marks from plasma fire, and his weathered face showed the strain of another brutal campaign. The Human Federation had been at war with the Zalani Collective for 3 years, ever since first contact had gone catastrophically wrong. The orange sun of Kepler-4 cast long shadows across the battlefield where bodies of both species lay scattered. Marcus surveyed the carnage with growing unease. This wasn't how wars were supposed to be fought, not according to the values Earth had taught him as a child. "Sir, we found a survivor," called Sergeant Thompson, his voice tight with tension. Marcus followed him to a crater where a lone Zalani female crouched beside the broken form of what appeared to be a youngster. Her silver skin was streaked with blue blood, and her large, luminous eyes held a fierce protectiveness despite her injuries. The Zalani were a proud species, standing 7 feet tall with graceful limbs and crystalline features that caught light like living gemstones. This one was clearly a warrior, her ceremonial markings indicating high rank within their military caste. Yet she made no move to attack, focused entirely on the wounded child at her side. "Standard protocol, Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez reminded him, raising his plasma rifle. "No prisoners, no witnesses. Command's orders." Marcus felt his stomach turn. The child couldn't be more than 10 years old by human standards. Her breathing shallow and labored. The female warrior positioned herself between the humans and the youngster, her musical voice speaking words Marcus couldn't understand, but whose meaning was crystal clear. She would die before letting harm come to the child. "Sir," Rodriguez pressed, his finger moving toward the trigger. "Stand down," Marcus ordered. Surprising his own squad, "This isn't right." The battlefield fell silent except for the distant rumble of retreating Federation forces. Marcus found himself studying the Zalani female's face, seeing past the alien features to recognize something fundamentally familiar. The desperate love of a protector for the innocent. 3 years of propaganda had painted the Zalani as monsters, aggressive expansionists who had attacked human colonies without provocation. But looking at this scene of maternal devotion, Marcus began to question everything he'd been told. Wars weren't fought over research facilities unless there was something valuable to protect or discover. "Captain, we have our orders," Rodriguez insisted, though his voice wavered. Marcus stepped forward, slowly removing his helmet to show his face to the Zalani warrior. Her large eyes widened in surprise at the gesture of vulnerability. He knelt down, placing his weapon on the ground between them, and spoke the few words of Zalani he'd learned during intelligence briefings. "I will not harm the young one," he said carefully, his pronunciation clumsy but sincere. The female tilted her head, studying him with an intelligence that made Marcus realize how wrong humanity had been about this species. These weren't mindless aggressors, but a sophisticated civilization with their own codes of honor and protection of innocence. Rodriguez and Thompson exchanged glances, confusion and concern written across their faces. They had followed Marcus through countless battles, trusting his judgment when others had failed them. But this was different. This was mutiny. "What are you doing, sir?" Thompson whispered. Marcus looked at his men, then back at the wounded child, whose labored breathing was growing weaker. "The right thing," he replied. Lines crossed. Zalani female spoke again, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Though Marcus couldn't understand her words, her tone conveyed gratitude mixed with wariness. She reached into a pouch at her side and withdrew a small medical device, applying it to the child's wounds with practiced efficiency. "Sir, Federation Command is requesting our status," Rodriguez reported, his comm unit crackling with static. "They want confirmation of complete target elimination." Marcus felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. In his earpiece, he could hear Colonel Harrison's voice demanding updates from all squad leaders. The man was a by-the-book officer who viewed the Zalani as nothing more than obstacles to human expansion across the galaxy. "Tell them we're still sweeping for survivors," Marcus replied, buying time. He wasn't sure how to use that. The Zalani child stirred, her large eyes opening to focus on Marcus with startling clarity. She spoke a single word that needed no translation, human, but there was no fear in her voice, only curiosity. The warrior female placed a protective hand on the child's shoulder while maintaining eye contact. With Marcus. Thompson shifted nervously, his weapon lowered but ready. "Captain, what's the play here? We can't stay much longer without raising suspicions." Marcus studied the medical device the Zilani was using, noting its sophisticated design and obvious effectiveness. The child's breathing was already improving, color returning to her silver skin. This technology was clearly advanced, possibly even beyond current human capabilities. Rodriguez, "Scan the facility for any intact data cores," Marcus ordered, his mind racing. "Thompson, establish a perimeter. If anyone asks, we're securing potential intelligence assets." The Zilani female watched these movements with keen attention, her musical voice speaking rapid phrases that sounded like strategic analysis. Marcus realized she was likely a military commander herself, probably wondering why the humans hadn't simply killed them both and moved on. His comm unit crackled again. "Kane, this is Harrison. What's your status? We're showing minimal activity from your sector." Marcus took a deep breath, knowing his next words would change everything. "Colonel, we've discovered something significant. The facility wasn't just a research station. There are medical technologies here that could revolutionize battlefield treatment for our forces." It wasn't entirely a lie. The device in the Zilani's hands represented technology that could save countless human lives. But Marcus knew Harrison would only see it as another weapon to be seized and exploited. "Secure whatever you find and eliminate all witnesses," Harrison replied curtly. "We can't risk intelligence leaks." The Zilani female seemed to understand the gist of the conversation, her posture tensing as she prepared for a final stand. But Marcus surprised her by reaching into his own medical kit and offering a human stimulant injector, designed to stabilize trauma patients. "For the child," he said in broken Zilani, gesturing toward the youngster. The female took the injector hesitantly, examining it with the same scientific curiosity her people had shown toward all human technology during their brief diplomatic contacts before the war began. After a moment, she nodded and administered the medication, which seemed to further improve the child's condition. "Sir, we've got movement on the perimeter," Thompson reported. "Federation reinforcements. About 10 minutes out." Marcus felt the walls closing in around them. In 10 minutes, a full squad would arrive, expecting to find nothing but corpses and secured intelligence. The Zilani female seemed to sense the approaching danger, gathering the child in her arms with obvious intent to flee. "Wait," Marcus called out, then struggled to find the Zilani words. Finally, he resorted to his comm unit's translation matrix, speaking slowly so the device could process his meaning. "There's another way," he said, the mechanical voice rendering his words in musical Zilani tones. "My people were told yours attacked without reason, but I see honor in you. Perhaps both our peoples have been deceived." The female paused, her luminous eyes studying Marcus with new intensity. When she replied, her words came through the translator as haunting revelation. "We were told the same of humans, that you sought only conquest and destruction, yet you offer aid to enemies and protection to the helpless. What manner of deception spreads such lies between peoples of honor?" The weight of truth, the approaching rumble of Federation transport vehicles grew louder as Marcus faced the most critical decision of his military career. The Zilani female held the child protectively while watching him with eyes that seemed to pierce through years of propaganda and conditioning. "Rodriguez, how long until the reinforcements arrive?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his mind. 7 minutes, sir. Maybe less if they're pushing hard." Marcus activated his comm unit's recording function and spoke directly to the Zilani commander. "My name is Marcus Kane, captain of the Human Federation forces. What is your name and rank?" The translator worked its mechanical magic as she replied, "I am Zephyra, war singer of the 7th Harmony, protector of the research caste." She gestured toward the child. "This is Lyric, youngest daughter of the facility's chief medical researcher." "War singer," Marcus repeated, recognizing it as roughly equivalent to his own rank. "Your people were studying medical technology here, weren't they? Not weapons." Zephyr's expression shifted, hope and confusion warring in her features. You know this? Then why did your forces attack a healing center? Why do your leaders claim we develop instruments of death, when we seek only to preserve life? The pieces of a larger puzzle began falling into place in Marcus's mind. 3 years ago, first contact had occurred when a human exploration vessel had encountered a Zalani medical ship, responding to a distress call from a damaged colony transport. Within hours, both sides were exchanging fire, each claiming the other had initiated hostilities. Someone wanted this war, Marcus said grimly. But it wasn't your people or mine who truly started it. Rodriguez moved closer, his expression troubled. Sir, what are you thinking? Marcus looked at his trusted sergeant, a man who had followed him through campaigns across 3-star systems. I'm thinking we've been played, Rodriguez. Think about it. The Zalani had no strategic reason to attack human colonies. We had no reason to assault their medical facilities. Yet here we are, 3 years deep in a war neither side wanted. Thompson's scanner beeped urgently. Contacts approaching fast. Sir, Federation IFVs, full combat load. Zephyra rose to her feet, cradling little Lyric with careful strength. Her warrior's instincts were clearly calculating odds, distances, and escape routes. But she made no immediate move to flee, instead, fixing Marcus with an intense stare. If what you suggest is true, War Leader Kane, then both our peoples are victims of a greater deception. But words alone will not stop the killing. What would you have us do? Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down upon him. His next decision would either damn him as a traitor or mark him as the man who tried to prevent galactic genocide. Through his tactical display, he could see the approaching Federation forces, men and women who trusted him to follow orders without question. I'm going to do something that will probably get me court-martialed, he said to his squad. Rodriguez, Thompson, I won't order you to follow me on this, but I'm about to cross a line there's no coming back from. Both men exchanged glances before Rodriguez spoke for them both. Sir, we've followed you this far because you've never led us wrong. If you say there's something bigger happening here, we trust your judgment. Marcus felt a surge of gratitude for his men's loyalty, even as he prepared to test it to its limits. He turned back to Zephyra, who was watching this exchange with obvious understanding despite the language barrier. War Singer, I'm going to help you and the child escape. In return, I need you to get us to someone in your command structure who can authorize a ceasefire. We need to find out who really wanted this war and why. Zephyra's eyes widened as the translator processed his words. You would be branded a traitor by your own kind for such actions. Better a traitor to corruption than a loyal servant to lies, Marcus replied. The sound of approaching vehicles grew thunderous. Marcus quickly began setting charges round the facility's main structures, making it appear as though the Zalani had triggered a self-destruct sequence to prevent capture of their technology. This is going to look like we barely escaped with our lives, he explained to his squad. The explosion will cover your escape route, he told Zephyra, pointing toward a ravine that led away from the facility. As the first Federation vehicles crested the nearby ridge, Marcus grabbed Zephyra's arm. There's a monitoring station in the asteroid belt between our territories, neutral space. If you can get a message there in 3 days, I'll find a way to meet you. She nodded, understanding the gravity of what he was proposing. And if this is a trap, War Leader Kane? Marcus looked into her alien eyes and saw the same honor and determination that had driven him through years of military service. Then we'll both die knowing we tried to do the right thing. The escapee First Federation transport crested the hill. Just as Marcus triggered the demolition charges, the research facility erupted in a series of controlled explosions, sending debris and smoke billowing across the battlefield. In the chaos, Zephyra and Little Lyric disappeared into the ravine system like ghosts, their silver forms blending seamlessly with the rocky terrain. Status report. Colonel Harrison's voice barked through the comm as his command vehicle rumbled to a stop. Beside Marcus's position, Marcus wiped soot from his face, playing his role perfectly. Self-destruct sequence. Sir, the Zalani triggered it just as we were securing the facility. We barely made it out ourselves. Harrison surveyed the burning wreckage with obvious disappointment. Any intelligence recovered? Some data fragments before the explosion, Rodriguez replied smoothly. Producing a damaged storage unit that contained nothing but corrupted files. Tech division might be able to piece something together. Thompson added to the deception by pointing toward the ravine where Zephyra had fled. Two hostiles escaped in that direction, sir. Looked like they were wounded, moving slow. Harrison gestured to his squad leaders. Take 2 squads and run them down. No survivors this time. He turned back to Marcus. Good work. Captain, these surgical strikes are exactly what we need to break their research infrastructure. As the pursuit teams moved toward the ravine, Marcus felt his heart hammering against his ribs. If they caught Zephyra and Lyric before the pair could reach safety, his desperate gambit would end in tragedy. Worse, Harrison would realize that Marcus had deliberately allowed them to escape, sir. One of the pursuit squad leaders reported. Back within minutes, we found blood trails, but they lead into the underground river system. Tracking is impossible in those conditions. Marcus suppressed his relief as Harrison cursed colorfully. The underground rivers were a perfect escape route, feeding into a network of caverns that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Even if Federation forces tried to follow, the Zolani's natural agility and knowledge of the terrain would give them an insurmountable advantage. Acceptable losses, Harrison decided. 2 wounded hostiles can't carry intelligence far enough to matter. We'll hit the next facility on the list tomorrow. The ride back to base camp gave Marcus time to think through the implications of what he'd done. By tomorrow, Zephyra would be making contact with her superiors. Assuming she survived the journey, Marcus would need to find a way to reach the neutral monitoring station without arousing suspicion. That evening, as the camp settled into routine maintenance and preparation for the next day's assault, Marcus approached Rodriguez and Thompson. Privately, I need a favor, he said quietly. And it's the kind that could get all of us executed if we're caught. Rodriguez leaned against a supply crate, his expression serious. This about those Zolani you let escape, isn't it, sir? Marcus felt a moment of panic before realizing his sergeant's tone held no accusation. Only curiosity. You knew, saw the way you looked at that kid, Thompson replied. Same look you get when talking about your niece back on Earth. Some things transcend species, I guess. Marcus felt a surge of affection for his men. I think this whole war is based on a lie. Someone wanted humans and Zolani killing each other, and they've been manipulating both sides to keep the conflict going. Makes sense. Rodriguez mused. Never did understand why the Zolani would attack our colonies when they had no strategic value, and their first strike supposedly came just hours after we established diplomatic contact. Timing was awfully convenient. Convenient for whom? Thompson asked. Marcus had been wrestling with that question all day. Someone who benefits from keeping both species focused on each other, instead of exploring the galaxy freely. Someone who needs us weakened and distracted. The Draconis Consortium, Rodriguez said suddenly. They've been trying to establish trade monopolies in this sector for decades. A war between the 2 most powerful species would eliminate their competition. The pieces clicked together in Marcus's mind with startling clarity. The Draconis Consortium wasn't even a species in the traditional sense, but rather a collection of various alien races united only by their pursuit of profit. They had the resources to manipulate communications, stage false flag operations, and benefit enormously from selling weapons to both sides of any conflict. I need to get to that monitoring station, Marcus said. If Zephyra can provide evidence of consortium involvement from the Zolani side, and I can gather intelligence from our military databases, we might be able to expose the whole conspiracy. How? Thompson asked practically. You can't exactly request leave to go meet with enemy commanders. Marcus smiled grimly. I'll think of something. But first, I need you two to help me access some classified files. If I'm right about the consortium, there should be evidence in our own intelligence reports. Patterns of information that don't add up. Communication intercepts that were too convenient. Supply contracts that don't make sense. Over the next 2 hours, using Rodriguez's technical skills and Thompson's talent for creative rule bending, they accessed databases that painted a disturbing picture. ship movements that didn't match official records, weapons shipments that appeared in both human and Zalani supply chains, and communications intercepts that seemed designed to inflame tensions, rather than provide actionable intelligence. "Sir," Rodriguez said quietly, staring at a particularly damning logistics report, "I think you're right, and I think we're in deeper trouble than any of us realized." Marcus studied the data, feeling the weight of revelation and responsibility settling on his shoulders. Tomorrow, he would have to find a way to reach that monitoring station, knowing that the future of two civilizations might depend on his success. The truth unveiled 3 days later. Marcus floated in the cramped cockpit of a maintenance pod, officially conducting routine inspection of communication relays in the asteroid field between human and Zalani space. His heart pounded as he approached the neutral monitoring station, a small automated facility that both sides used to prevent accidental incursions. The station appeared deserted until a sleek Zalani scout ship emerged from behind a nearby asteroid. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as the ship docked with the monitoring station. Either Zephyra had survived the journey and convinced her superiors to meet, or he was about to walk into an elaborate trap dot as he entered the station's cramped meeting chamber. Marcus found himself face to face with 3 Zalani officers. Zephyra stood among them, her silver skin bearing fresh scars from their escape, but her luminous eyes bright with determination. Little Lyric stood beside her, no longer the wounded child, but alert and healthy. "War Leader Kane," Zephyra said. "Through the translation matrix, I present Harmony Keeper Nexus, chief of our intelligence gathering, and Battle Conductor Prism, commander of our defensive fleets." The senior Zalani officers studied Marcus with expressions that mixed curiosity with deep suspicion. Harmony Keeper Nexus spoke first, her words flowing like music through the translator. "Your war singer Zephyra has told us remarkable things about your actions, but words alone will not end a war that has cost both our people so dearly." Marcus activated a portable data display, showing the intelligence he and his squad had gathered. "Then perhaps evidence will serve better than words. We've discovered that the Draconis Consortium has been manipulating both our civilizations, feeding false intelligence to our leaders and profiting from the weapons sales to both sides." Battle Conductor Prism leaned forward as the data scrolled past, her tactical mind clearly analyzing the implications. "These supply routes you show, they match disruptions in our own logistics network. We assumed human sabotage. But if these consortium vessels were actually intercepting our shipments, they were selling your own weapons back to you at inflated prices," Marcus confirmed, "while simultaneously selling human weapons to your enemies and claiming they were captured in battle." Harmony Keeper Nexus manipulated the display with surprising familiarity with human technology. "The communication intercepts match patterns we've identified in our own intelligence. Someone has been feeding both sides information designed to escalate conflicts rather than resolve them." Zephyra stepped forward, her expression intense. "Show them the facility data, War Leader Kane." Marcus pulled up the analysis of the research station they had raided. "Your medical facility wasn't developing weapons at all. They were working on biotechnology to help colonists adapt to hostile environments. Peaceful research that would have benefited both our species, while our intelligence claimed it was a biological weapons laboratory." Battle Conductor Prism said grimly, "Someone wanted us to believe humans would attack a medical facility unprovoked, just as someone wanted humans to believe we would develop biological weapons for aggressive war." The pieces of the conspiracy were falling into place with terrifying clarity. Marcus felt the weight of thousands of lives lost to deception and manipulation. The question now is how we prove this to our respective governments before more people die. Little Lyric, who had been quietly observing the adult conversation, suddenly spoke up in clear, unaccented English. "The answer is in the quantum communication logs." The adults stared at her in surprise before Zephyra explained. "Lyric is not just the daughter of a medical researcher. She is what you would call a prodigy in communications technology. She was studying the facility's data when your forces attacked." The child stepped forward with confidence that belied her youth. "The consortium has been using quantum entanglement to coordinate their deception across vast distances. But quantum communications leave traces in subspace that can be detected. If you know what to look for, Harmony Keeper Nexus knelt down to lyrics level, speaking in rapid Zilani that the translator rendered as, "Child, you're suggesting we can trace the source of the false intelligence." "Not just trace it," Lyric replied in English, then switched to Zilani for the others. "We can prove it came from consortium facilities and show the pattern of deception. They've been weaving, but we need access to both human and Zilani communication networks simultaneously." Marcus felt hope blooming in his chest for the first time since the war began. That's possible. If we can coordinate our efforts, we can gather the proof needed to expose the consortium to both our governments. Battle Conductor Prism stood, her warriors bearing commanding attention. "This will require unprecedented cooperation between our military networks. The risks are enormous. If we're discovered, both of us will be branded as traitors by our own people. We already crossed that line when we chose truth over blind obedience," Marcus replied. "The question is whether we have the courage to see it through." Zephyra moved to stand beside Marcus, her alien features determined. "Then let us end this war the same way we began to understand each other, with honor, with courage, and with faith that truth will prevail over deception." As the unlikely alliance of human and Zilani officers began planning their operation to expose the consortium's manipulation, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. He had been called a traitor for saving an enemy, child, but in doing so, he had discovered that the real enemy was the force that had turned to honorable civilizations against each other. The path ahead would be dangerous, requiring them to risk everything they had sworn to protect. But as he looked at Zephyra, at the determined Zilani commanders, and at little Lyric whose innocent wisdom had provided the key to ending the war, Marcus knew they were fighting for something greater than military victory. They were fighting for the truth that would set both their peoples free.